Okay, so welcome everybody for our second, which is really exciting. 3 humans, 6 questions, no agenda. This actually came from a 3 a.m. light bulb moment. And I went, oh, that might be a good idea. I've been having some interesting conversations with friends where we really were just talking. We happened to get on Zoom and just not really have an agenda to it, but what came of it was phenomenal. When we don't put anything and no expectations to it, we were all sort of blown away by the ideas that came out of it. So I think that probably spurred on this 3 a.m. hey, why don't we try this? So turned my light on, jotted that down, and voila, here we are. The first one was awesome, so here we are with the second one. And it really is, it's simply a conversation with horse people. Doesn't mean it's going to go that way, but a conversation with horse folks that are really dedicated to the horse-human connection, and seeing where that goes and seeing where that takes humanity. And I know we all have that sort of that fire inside of us, to sort of that gentle fire inside of us to, you know, what is that? I always call it the bigger picture. I haven't thought of another word for it, but it's just, what is that bigger picture around all of the work we do with the horses? And we're really here just to dance and play in that space of our hearts. And I thought of it when I was just popped out for a bit, and I'm driving home, and it's like, it's about perspectives, but it's not or, it's and. I think often we see perspectives as mine or somebody else's, or yours or mine, and it becomes this combativeness. And I just on the way home, this red light went, no, it's about and. Our perspectives might be different, but it's about and. It's about all of those perspectives together and what pieces we pull from each of them. So I'd love to approach this as and. This whole thing is about and how do we, you know, what is in that and. So without further ado, and for those here, like I say, we're going to have our conversation and then bring everybody back in if we could. So we'll not put, maybe we can't refrain from putting questions in the chat pod until afterwards, if we have any. And with that, I'd like to introduce my fellow humans. For this, Fotini Shadirka and Greta Matos. Fotini is from Canada, as am I, and Greta is from Chile. And Fotini, can I just give you a minute to sort of introduce yourself?
Thank you, Linda. And thank you, Greta. And thank you, everyone who's here joining us today. Yeah, I'm here from Loretto, Ontario, Canada, where I'm the steward of 4 incredible, majestic horse teachers. And I practice a model called Horse Wisdom Yoga, which I co-created with the herd. The literal meaning of yoga is unity. So the horses have truly guided my personal healing journey, reconnecting to the unity within myself as the micro, and now moving into, you know, healing within humanity as the macro and the bigger picture, if you will. Yeah, I've been the steward for the same 4 horses for the past decade, which has been really interesting in learning about the different equine archetypes. And they've actually opened this portal to a universal wisdom that I feel is largely suppressed in sort of mainstream society. So this real, like, natural wisdom, the wisdom of nature. And yeah, that's pretty much us here in a nutshell. My horses' names are Malachi, Spirit, Penny, and Isa, and their ages range from age 10 to age 32. And I'm truly humbled to be in the company of you all today and being guided by these incredible horses everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you, Fotini. And I see you've got your buddy behind you there.
Yes, this is Otis. I can't forget him. He took his 10,000 steps this morning, so he is
he's good.
He's good to go for the meeting.
That's awesome. Well, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here with us. And Greta.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. Thank you, Linda and Fotini, and all of you for gathering in space to share today. So I actually was born in Pennsylvania in the US, but have called Chile, the south of Chile, home for the last 7 years. And down here, I am an honored guardian of a herd of 6, with one in our spirit herd. So originally 7. Incredible criollos. They're Chilean, kind of like Chilean Mustangs, I guess you would consider. They're the mountain horses from here. And the work that I do is very deeply integrated in the life that I live, in collaboration with the herd. So we live in a space of listening to the relationship between the herd and the land where we live, and our bodies. And so a lot of my work comes through essentially what kind of space the herd is holding. A lot of the engagement that I do with them is, again, from this place of listening and trying to come into a deeper relationship with the way that they are guided naturally by the land. And so I'm very lucky in that the horses live pretty much as close to a wild setting as we can manage. So they're on about 200 acres free. And so in that context, a lot of the relationship is based on studying how does the land change? How do the horses change? How do I change over time as we spend more time simply in conversation and being with one another? So that's a little bit, a kind of a glimpse into what's emerging down here. But ultimately, the way that goes out into the world is to seek these spaces essentially where integration is possible. So where we can create safety for listening, for engaging in authentic relationship, and then how do we take it out into the world and shift our relationship with land, with horses, but also with humanity and with one another, so that we are able to co-collaborate and co-create with the earth through climate change, through global unrest.
Awesome. Thank you, Greta. Wow, this is going to be awesome. So just a bit about me for those that are listening. My name is Linda Watson. I am coming to you from not too far from Fotini near Toronto, Canada. And you might know me by our Equine Leadership magazine that we publish. I do have a business called Horse Touch Life Design. I have been in the horse world for many years. I don't have a herd at the moment, but looking to go back and get one, or waiting for one to find me, I should say. That's more like it, is waiting for one to find me. So patiently, as patiently as I can, I will do with my dog herd for now and go from there. So I think we should get started. And what we did last time was we started with a story. It's a nice way to sort of get to know each other, and then we'll jump right into our questions. We don't know each other's questions. We've been coming up with our own questions, and other than knowing what the story is, which I generally prompt first, that is it. We don't know what each other is going to ask, so that's sort of half the fun of this. But I did ask, and I did prompt for a story that created a shift in each of us, or what a story with horses or with another animal, but that created some kind of shift inside of us. And so that's what we'll start with. Would either of you ladies like to start the show?
I can go.
I'm happy to kick us off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. So what came up for me with this invitation, I was actually taken back to several years ago. My husband and I, we did a long ride across Patagonia. So we rode 3 of our horses. We traveled with 1,000 kilometers. So for 4 months, we lived in the backcountry, traversing the whole region. And on that journey, I experienced a very significant shift internally. particularly with my relationship with time and ideas about destination and arriving at a destination within a certain time frame. And horses are such incredible guides for us in that way when we're willing to allow them to guide us. But essentially, as someone who was very conditioned to be quite excellent at setting a target, setting a plan, and achieving that target, the journey in Patagonia essentially blew that apart because we left everything open. And we went into territory where there were no maps, there were no trails. We had to fully rely on the guidance of our own intuition, of the information that we were receiving from the environment, the information that we were receiving from the horses to essentially get us through. And we lost our way so many times. At one point, a section that we thought would take us 8 days, we had 13 days of food, took us 27 days. And through that process, with the horses' willingness to every day find the way with us, and the fluid exchange of losing the way and coming back and finding the way, and then losing the way and finding our way, losing our way, and essentially dancing with that and building that muscle for 4 months. Now, ever since that journey, it's fundamentally shifted the way in which I live my life, and particularly I'm willing to live my life with the horses too, in that exchange and that allowance, and that the horizon is able to change, you know, without any attachment. So yeah, that was what came up for me.
Wow, that's profound. Excellent, thank you. Fotini.
What an amazing story about relationship with time. That's incredible. So I've had many shifts with horses, as I'm sure we all could sit here all day and share our stories of the shifts. But there's one that really stands out for me, and it was when I sort of first took on guardianship and stewardship of this herd of 4 horses, and I had a vision, but I wasn't really clear, you know, being a first-time steward of horses, and I wasn't really clear as to where we were going together. And I guess this could be relative to Greta's story as well about destination, right? So it's kind of like, okay, here we are, and like, where are we going? And I knew that I wasn't riding these horses. None of them wanted to be ridden, so that was a clear answer there. And I knew I wanted to help people, and that the horses wanted to help people. But ultimately, I was asked by one of my mentors. She said, so what's your intention with the horses? Let's really get clear on your intention. And it was so interesting because I sat with that for a second, and I breathed into the question, and I just sort of sat, and then I heard myself respond. So it wasn't a reactive response. It was like I heard and witnessed myself in my authenticity respond. And my response was, and I'll never forget it, this was 10 years ago, my response was to live in harmony together. So all of a sudden it all changed from, you know, what I wanted to do with my work and my practice, and, you know, all of these things that were ideas, and it came to right down to this real clear vision of living in harmony together. And like I mentioned, like, it was so interesting to not have thought of that response. Like I remember so clearly, like, just kind of witnessing myself speak those words. And that's become sort of the reference point moving forward over the past 10 years. Every time, you know, the journey may drift off of maybe the track that we feel we're supposed to be on, I'm reminded that the journey is about living in harmony together. And that's the intention. So wherever we're going, as long as that harmony is there, we're living our intention. And it doesn't really matter what else is happening as far as our practice and, you know, the shape of things that way, the logistics of things. And this intention of living together in harmony has become the guide to the work that we're doing together, and to living in harmony not just with horses, but also within the self, within nature, within all aspects of beingness. So there's this ongoing theme of harmony. Are we in harmony? You know, and that's sort of the place we return to anytime that perhaps there's a disharmony or maybe a misalignment somewhere. It's felt so quickly because we come back to that place of, are we in harmony? And if we're not, how can we reclaim that harmony together?
Wow. Beautiful. And I hear in both of those a gentleness, like a softening to life, and like living in harmony and letting time guide, like letting yourself be guided. It's like this, it almost feels, it, I feel is like a weight is lifted off, and it's like, you know, this is how I'm going to, all those other will fall in, but there's that. So thank you, those are beautiful. Wow. For me, it was a big shift when I went, I took my kids one year, my grown-up now children, when they were smaller, down to the States. There's a book called Misty of Chincoteague, and it's an old book that is about the wild ponies down in Virginia and Maryland. And once a year, Virginia, Maryland, there's an island, Chincoteague, and half's in one state and half's in the other. And once a year in Maryland, the horses swim. They swim the horses over to shore, give them any inoculations they need to. They have a sail just to keep the herd down because land is limited, and then they swim back. And so for one vacation year, we decided to go down and take the kids down and experience this. So we did that part. It was the next day. Hold on, let somebody in here. It was the next day we decided to go to the other province, or as I province, state, I apologize, to see the other horses. And the other horses were in a park. This park was on the beach. There were people on the beach. The concept was you can go and see the horses, but you can't, you know, you don't approach them, which is fine. We were horse people. We knew that. Of course, because I think we were horse people and very calm, the horse, I remember my son, one pony came right on up to him. I'm like, no, don't touch it. But what I was where the shift came is what I was expecting. And this was 30 years ago. So now I sort of look back on it and go, aha, you know, like that's, it's logical for me now. But for then, I was expecting the word wild. I was expecting to see a wild look in their eyes. And I was expecting to see this. What I got when we saw them was the calmest, softest, gentlest eyes I'd ever seen. And right then and there, everything flipped to 180. It's like, oh, wait a minute. It's us that causes that look in the eye. And I don't mean that as all humans, but is that, you know, domestication and bringing them out of that natural environment is what sometimes causes that look. And I was just wrong. I had it wrong. I had it flipped backwards. And at that moment I went, oh, okay, I got it. It's like the universe was just going, no, 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 no. You need to flip that thinking around. And I've since worked with, you know, and done workshops with wild herds, knowing that and knowing there's this gentleness, this softness. And when we stand back and observe, what we can learn is phenomenal. So that for me was just, you know, that you're walking down the road one way and you don't even know it. And suddenly you're walking the other direction. And you're like, not sure how that happened, but it did. So that was, you know, what I thought the question came to me, or what story should we share? And then that was the biggest one for me. There's been, like you say, there's lots all the time, but that was you know, in that moment, life changed. So
wow.
That's mine. So
that's beautiful.
yeah. So welcome, Nancy, and welcome, Kate. Hello, hello.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. I'm so happy to have you here. So we're going to go through our questions, and then we'll bring everybody back on video later on and have a question, answer, whatever we want to do afterwards. So if you'll bear with us and just listen and enjoy the questions and the answers.
Thank you. I just want to apologize. I was here on time. I couldn't get in. I would never come late to something
No, it's
that I
fine.
value so highly.
Oh no, that's okay. We're on horse time. Doesn't matter.
Oh,
Okay, you're here.
I love
That's
that
what's
phrase.
important.
Thank you. Very gracious
right.
of you. Thank
No,
you
that's
all.
fine. Okay, take care. Okay, so now we get into the questions. So let's start. Greta, you started with your story, so let's start you with a question if you want to do your first question, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So my question is, it has two parts, but the second part's really short. So how can befriending uncertainty support wellness? And what is one way in which you each allow spaces of your life to be filled with the unknown rather than the planned? And I can put it in the chat because as I'm reading it, it feels long. So
okay.
let me
Yeah, that'd be
know.
great. Actually, if you do that, and other people
Okay.
can do that. Yeah. And I'm looking down here because I'm a note taker, and I try to summarize this all. So if you see me looking down, I'm viciously writing. So
Greta, would you mind just repeating the second part of the question?
Sure. The second part of the question is, what is one way in which you allow spaces of your life to be filled by the unknown rather than plans or expectations?
mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure everybody's thinking on that one now.
I'm
a great
just putting it
question.
in the chat as well.
All right. That's a great idea, actually. Let's put them all when we excellent. And Fotini, when you feel ready,
Mhm.
give you the floor.
Wow. Well, what an amazing question. What an incredible reflection in this just couple of moments that I had before answering. So my answer to how befriending uncertainty can support wellness, the first thing that sort of came to my heart was encouraging that present moment awareness. So by befriending uncertainty and letting go of what we know, it encourages the empty mind. Every time we enter the new day or the new moment, it's the empty mind and encouraging us to be present in the moment because we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I've often felt that any form of certainty has only been really somewhat of an illusion anyway. My life growing up in my childhood and moving into much of the early adult years was quite uncertain. So, and it did support my wellness journey in just those ways, by encouraging that present moment awareness and, moving through cycles and seasons and everything, just like nature is in those present moments. And the second part, one way you allow space of life to be filled with unknown rather than plans and expectations. For me, that has to be listening. So by listening in each moment, I feel like I'm not allowing expectation to be the thief of my destiny. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah. Are you complete? I didn't know. I don't want to step in.
Thank you. Yes, I'm complete. Thank you.
Maybe we should do that here so that we know each other's complete and not take that.
Sounds good.
So,
Okay.
Just thought of that one now. That's a great, yeah. Another friend and I do, we always go, it's just, For me, uncertainty, for me lies in, I was given a vision. We had a farm for 20 years. That was wonderful. For specific reasons, we left the farm. It's been about 20 years since we've been on the farm. But in those years, I was given a vision of a farm that I would end up on. I drew it. I have a picture of it. I have a painting of it. But now I have to let it go. Because otherwise, and that's that uncertainty is, well, when will this happen? I've been given the vision. When's it going to happen? Come on, let's go. And it becomes stress. It becomes distressful. It becomes anxiety filled because why isn't it happening? So that befriending that uncertainty, and the word that comes to me, and I have a dear friend that is an artist, and she paints black and white horse pictures, but each of them is one is grace, one is courage, and they've guided her through. These horses have guided her through many difficult times, but the one that always, and I love dearly, is surrender. And when I first saw surrender, I thought, oh no, that's give in to something. And it took me years to play around, and that it all ties into that uncertainty. I believe that surrendering to, you've been given this vision, now let it go. It's and in that is that wellness. In that is that softness and that allowing, and that another word then that comes up is, in that unknown is that allowing those space, as you said, allowing the universe to go, okay, we got you. And then the horses have come in, and a meditation with them last year. I had these plans to do this beautiful meditation. I had the camera all set up. Some of you might have heard this story already. I had this camera set up. I go and stand with the horses, and the one horse comes over. He says hi. The other horse comes over, pushes that horse away, pushes me out of camera range, not known to me, pushes me out of camera range. I'm like, okay. And I just stand with him. And he says, do you trust us? As loud as a horse can yell in your ear and in your heart. He says, do you trust us? And that was the end. I was, tears. Yes, I do. But again, in that uncertainty is the trust. Do you trust time, space, visions, whatever? Do you trust it? And when you do, and you let all that go, you open up that space for everything to fall in. And things do suddenly start to fall in that uncertainty. So yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I thank you for asking that, because it allows me to put things into words. And I'm complete. Thank you.
Oh, both of you, wow, amazing. And so much resonance for me in listening to you both too. The power of presence, and how, uncertainty, it requires presence. If you're not present, then it's just anxiety that takes up the space, right? But actually we don't need that. That's not serving in any way. And it's kind of magnificent, and that the most we can be of service within that space is by being present. It makes it so simple. But that leaning into the trust and the allowance and the surrender, and giving surrender the power that it actually has. I love that you brought that word in, Linda, because that's also one that I've kind of been staking a claim with in these last few years of it's not a passive process to surrender to life at all. It actually requires huge courage. And in my life with these horses here too, the way in which they live so close to kind of, they don't know when, there's not a barn, there's not a schedule, there's not a routine in which they live. And so they're living in a natural rhythm as are we. And when we come into that, there's a lot more discomfort at times, but that also means that when there is comfort, you're there for it. You know, like there's so much presence in that. When the sunshine is there, the whole herd is laying down, receiving the sun. And that's what I'm doing too, you know, like in these wild elements here where we have crazy storms and all of that, like we're dropping into it. And I feel that, yeah, by befriending the uncertainty, we're actually reacquainting ourselves with a very innate way of being that we already know how to be. We're just distant from it in most of our society.
Excellent.
So
Wow.
thank you both for your beautiful response.
Oh,
Thank you for the
beautiful
question.
All right. Fatini.
All right. So as we know, nature is symbiotic in its relationships, and synchronistic and seasonal and cyclical and sacred. How has your relationship with horse influenced your relationship with nature within yourself?
Can you type that in?
Oh,
too?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea. Yeah.
It also allows us to sort of think that
Ruminate a bit.
Greta, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Do you mind if you have something right at the present? I'm still digesting a little.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I think with, you know, having horses and being with them, I mean, what comes to me first, and I mean, this is always about speaking from the heart. What comes to me first is death. They teach you about the life cycle, and yeah, and you know, through other articles that we've had written in the magazine about horses passing and what the other horses have done and how they've held that space and then being present and gone back to the present moment and gone back to grazing. I mean, that is nature. That yes, it happened. I acknowledge it. I acknowledge my feelings on it, and then I go back to grazing. Then I go back to the present. I can grieve in the present moment. Grief is a present moment thing. It's not an anxiety. It's not it is a present moment thing. So I allow myself that. So for me, that is a big part of that nature. And I think that's why for me, I deal with death in a bit of a different way. I don't go to funerals. And that to some is, well, why not? Well, because I'm dealing with it. I am dealing with it in this way. I speak to those I need to speak to, but I'm dealing with it as nature deals with it, not as humans deal with it. And that doesn't sit great with everybody, but that's how I honor. That's how I see it. And within that is just all the other seasons and all the other everything else. But to me, that's just that life cycle, and all those land within that life cycle. And for me, then that is an honoring. It becomes the more I can be that one with nature and be nature. We are not separate from nature. We are nature. So the more I can be nature, the more I can be myself. And I'm complete there.
Ooh. Wow.
Thank you.
Profound.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's very profound. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Whew, I gotta breathe into that one too. I love how you honor nature within you and not have to sort of, do what we're told is right, like do what we think is right socially, or, the conditioning, right?
Mhm.
And that you really honor that. Like, that's such a beautiful inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Who would like to?
For
Go next.
me, what this question brings up, I think about the way in which living, again, in relationship with nature, so an active relationship, not it just being a place that you go or go out into, but actually a lived experience. When I was growing up, I had horses since I was 3, but in the States, and the way in which we had those horses was very different than the way I have the herd here. We had a barn. They spent most of their time outside, but again, if it was stormy, we'd bring the horses in the barn. If it was snowing, we'd bring the horses in the barn. It was very much oriented in the mind of what we perceive horses needing to be comfortable and safe from our perspective. Whereas now, I myself am also living in a way that's much less from that lens and much more responsive to what I'm receiving from the environment around me. And so with the horses, for example, now it's winter here, and it's a time when they naturally lose weight, when they endure, when they need all the oils in their coats, when every part of their being is called upon and is necessary. And so don't touch that mane. They need that for the heat on their neck, don't cut those whiskers. There's so many aspects of manipulation of them that can't be done if they are able to thrive in nature and in the outdoors. And I find that within my own self too, as I cultivate a deeper relationship with my own soul in a way that is honoring this relationship with the wild that Linda, you brought in earlier, that I love so much, is actually there's so much gentleness in our wild. And that's within us as well. And I think that the horses bring that in. So seeing the way in which they actually thrive through winter, even though from our perception, it can be quite intense in terms of what they're experiencing. And I find the longer that I live as well out in the elements and not in a place of resistance to any kind of natural force outside of me and within me, the more whole I feel. And with that, I'm complete.
And I love everything. That's everything that you have said is like exactly where my heart was when I wrote this question, like from both of you, like how nature is who we are. Like we're not separate. It's not somewhere we go, right? We are nature. And it's so incredible when we come to that place to realize and actually embody that symbiotic relationship as we are a part of it, not separate from it. And that everything is, that language of synchronicity within nature, and how, the seasons affect the horses and how they affect our own bodies, and how we can nurture ourselves and the horses in our care through those changes. It's really incredible what nature teaches us about who we are, because it is who we are.
Yes.
Okay. Are we complete for that question? All right. I guess we'll start on the second question. So I found this in my journal. Not sure if it came from somebody or if I wrote it down at some 3 a.m. frantic writing because something came up in a dream. I'm not sure. But this is what I wrote down, and I love your reaction to it or your thoughts on it. So what I wrote was, this topic is so much bigger than horses, yet it is as simple as the wisdom they share with us. What's the topic and what's the wisdom? It's not a joke. It sounds like a joke when I say it like that. Let me type that in. So this topic is so much bigger than horses, yet it is as simple as the wisdom they share with us. Let me just... Whoops.
Martini, do you mind if I share? I have a word
Please,
pounding
please.
on in my mind right now.
Please.
And the horse is stomping. What comes up for me is the topic is presence. Like it's one of those things that's so, when you take like a 10,000-foot view of what we as humans do to design systems and ways toward well-being and all of these things, we almost always come back to the fact that we need to actually live within the present moment. And that's the teachings in all across the religions. I mean, all of these different facets of human knowledge, we're still always ending up back here. And yet somehow we're also constantly forgetting it. And I feel that particularly with the horses, I mean, it's so essential. It's kind of the only most important thing when you're with them. Presence is where there's safety. Presence is where there's trust. Presence is where there's relationship. Presence is where there's conversation. Presence is where there's life. And they're constantly giving us that feedback. So that's what I feel like. It's that kind of nut of wisdom, and it's so simple, and it's for everyone. Yeah, I'm complete with that.
Wow.
May I share, Linda?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. I was.
No, that's
Should have
so. It's
prompted that.
interesting because when Greta said that she had that word, when I heard you say, Greta, you had that word, it was just pounding. It was interesting because at the same time I was writing a very similar word, and the word that came up for me, or the topic that is bigger than horses yet is as simple as the wisdom they share with us, is connection. And that connection is sort of a loaded word. Like, it means so much. When I use the word connection, I don't see iPads and Zoom calls and cell phones. You know, I see connection as connection with earth, connection with divine entanglement, connection with synchronicities, connection with all that is, you know, and that I feel is where what the horses have taught me the most of, is that power and that wisdom in connection, and how connection is multifaceted. Like, it, you know, there's a connection within ourselves, mind, body, spirit connection and unity. There's a connection with, you know, within relationship. And then there's that ultimate connection, which is like plugging into the source, you know, and that's what I feel is making me feel complete.
Wow. And it's funny, I saw that question, but I haven't thought about it. So I just wrote it down. I went through my journal and thought, because I jot things down over the weeks, and oh, that'd be a good question. That would be good. But then I have to go back and find them. So that one I haven't even thought about it yet. But what I did think about today, what came to my mind today was, we know through research and through historical findings that horses were present in humans' lives before humans could speak, before humans had language. So what was the connection? What was that? How were they speaking? And it's almost like the topic and the wisdom is unspoken. And it's for one of a better, it's just there. And when we realize it's there, then we don't have to have words. We just have to be both, like connected and present, and just to be there to receive it. And is that, that's huge. And it's so simple at the same time. And that's, I think, where, from my perspective, humanity needs to simplify. Let's just go back to that time where we didn't have language even. What is it like to sit with the horses and not put it here? Allow it to come into here and not have to articulate it to anybody. Just to absorb it. And it's so hard to do. Whereas we go to a workshop, and what are we asked to do? How did that feel for you? We're asked to articulate. How can we do it where we don't ask to articulate? And the best expression of that I ever heard, it had nothing to do with horses, was a workshop that I did go to once. And the last thing it was 2 days and pretty heavy stuff. The last thing, after evaluations and everything, they did was they put on Louis Schwartzberg's gratitude video, the one where he's playing, he has a child and an older man talk at the end, and it's all about gratitude, and it's beautiful. And he plays that at the end, and we're done. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say goodbye. You're just done. And the feeling it finished on was like, whoa. That's it. So that's that feeling. And when we can all get to be in that space, wow, world's going to be a real different place. So I'm complete.
Wow.
And thank you.
Wow. Just wow. There's so much, like, and yet so nothingness because of the truth in that. That's like, just what do you say? You don't need to. Right?
You don't, exactly.
Yeah.
So the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So I think Cotinne, you're up for the next question.
All right. This is a fun one. So in modern day Western culture, many of us have grown up with a Disney or Hallmark definition of how love is expressed within human relationship. What have horses taught you about the true expression of love?
How do you feel, Linda? Do you want to begin? Or would you like
Yeah, I went right there. Trust. I go back to the word trust. The first one that came back in was just trust. And it goes to so many places, and they're like, trust us. Trust our aunt, trust what comes to you when you're with us. Because they're not giving us an answer. They're giving us a feedback on how we're feeling. They're not actually giving us a verbal answer. They're like, okay, you should feel this now. They're giving us a feedback. So trust what comes to me and how it feels to me when I'm with you. Well, that's deep. I'm gonna have to write that one. I'm gonna have to go back and get that one right now. But yeah, it's trust. I can't go any further than that. It just feels that love is trust. And with horses, with humans, it's with dogs, it's everything. My dog trusts me. So that's that love. So I'm complete.
Thank you.
I think they share, there's something about the unconditional, and I'll speak from my experience, because this is my relationship with horses has always been this. They've mentored me in what unconditional love feels like within my body. And not what it feels like to receive unconditional love, but what it feels like to unconditionally love. And that is a little bit different, I mean, it's really different than kind of the Western approach and view that we have of love, which is often very externally. What does love look like outside of ourselves? And so in addition to kind of having that awareness, then mine also, what comes up for me also connects with, Linda, what you were bringing up is that trust of, you can trust a relationship when you feel that love within you, even if it doesn't look like what you've been conditioned to believe love looks like, which is something that I love about horses, actually. It kind of explodes a lot of people's perception of what love looks like. And it gives us that space that's very vulnerable to acknowledge when we want it to look a certain way. But actually the horse that's standing 10 feet away and they themselves is deeply connecting with you 10 feet away, you can feel that love in your body. And all of a sudden that image that you have in your mind of wanting the horse to be snuggled up against you or to run to you in order to express its love, that's what can be let go of. And so I think that there's so much wisdom in releasing, because you can, they invoke that space where we can be with the real authentic feeling of love within our bodies. And we don't have to cast doubt on that feeling based on what we've been conditioned that love looks like.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm complete.
Yeah.
That's a
Beautiful.
beautiful question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was inspired by the horses. They've guided this journey for me about the expression of love, with some of my very close relationships that, don't look like Disney or Hallmark expressions, and that's been the greatest teacher, because I get to actually experience the feeling and embody the feeling, as opposed to all of the other stuff that can sometimes actually just foster more expectation and, again, that thief of joy and thief of the actual experience of love.
Right. Complete?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I think Greta, you're up. Or am I believe.
All right. Yeah. So my last question, how are you guided by the seasonal nature of life? I'm going to type that in too.
I love this question because it brings me to my long-standing roots of Ayurveda and Ayurvedic medicine, and which is truly rooted all in seasonal tendencies and changes and transitions. And I'm guided by Ayurveda in the sense of my the actual physical seasons of life. And then there's other seasons of life, like different stages of parenting, or different experiences with our horses, and those are also seasons, in my perspective, of life as well. And I think for me, it's flow and paying attention and being present with it, because what often happens, again, we talked a lot today about conditioning and sort of how we've been conditioned to do certain things or be certain ways, and oftentimes bombarded with conditioning to the degree that we cannot connect with this nature of life. And truthfully, the seasonal nature of life is everything, because we, even as far as our routines and rituals, when my routines and rituals in the summer are very different from my routines and rituals in the winter, and the horses as well, and all of nature. So it's being in flow and paying attention and not becoming rigid in our routines and rituals, and flowing with the seasons and the seasons of our lives. I'm complete. That was a wonderful question.
Mhm. I go back to a article that I read years ago, but it was about the seasons and how we should follow, or no, how we should follow, but offering the perspective on following the seasons to the point that we rest in winter and we be creative in spring. And how hard is that to do that in society? That no, winter's for getting in shape and going to the gym and move. Where, sorry, scare my puppy. I'm sorry. He's like, I'm moving. And then Greta, as you said, with the horses, is watching them and being guided by that. And the winter is a time when, yeah, they get a little thin, and they nature is, but then, sorry, nature is what it is for them. But then if we look at humanity gathers crops and stores them, because in the winter there's not the food for them, and they tend in the winter be the other way, because that's when we have time to eat and we're not harvesting. So I think there's a bit of a dichotomy as how do we follow nature that's right for us. And so I think for me it's sitting in that seasonal, like sitting in that. How does that feel? And that goes back to presence. How do I feel in this moment right now, in this season and in this day? And, you know, if I feel, oh, it's cold, I'm going to rest, then I allow that. I'm not a winter sports, so, you know, like, it's not a sports person. So it's watching them, but knowing that we're not horses, we're humans and we eat differently. So how does that work for us? So how do we find that balance? I guess the word for me there is balance. Yeah. And I'm complete.
I love that. I think what I hear from both of your responses too is this act of listening to, I mean, it's coming back into the body, and how that's done for each of us will be different. We're all in different bodies, and also oriented ancestrally to different lands and different seasons and different relationships with food and harvest. And I also love the contemplation around how do you integrate the desire to live more seasonally in all the different ways, within the constructs and the kind of the compartmentalized ways in which a lot of our societies operate that are not natural and that are not seasonally acknowledging. And part of that comes up for me when this question came in was also around thinking through kind of the life chapters that are a winter season chapter. For example, if you're not at the height of your career, but you've had a summer career and now you've actually shifted and you're in a winter phase, you know, or as women and men going through different cycles in their life that might be beyond our concept of seasons, but are within Earth season. So it might be within a millennial season. So we're not even conscious of that component of our life, and yet it's happening. And so, you know, it's lovely to hear your reflections.
Wow, that's I know for me, I will be taking a lot of this and contemplating and sitting with it tonight, because it certainly, you both brought such rich and deep perspectives that we are all, you know, we all open up a little bit more. So I've got like 4 questions. I got to choose one, but I'm going to go with the one I had. So we work individually with horses. We work with groups. But I believe there is an equine collective. Humans have been connected to horses. And if we look at Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenic field, we know that humans are connected with horses just because of our history, and that's natural. And people like, why horses? Well, we know why, because, you know, we've been with them before we could talk as a race. So there is, in that energetic way, there's an equine collective. And my question is, what makes the equine collective so powerful? And I will type that in.
I would have to say, what makes the equine collective so powerful, in my perspective, would be the wisdom and the guidance of the horses. Just their energy, and the people who have stepped into that space of their energy, that receptivity and reciprocity of wisdom and healing and energy itself, in every sense of the word of energy. And of course the guidance from the horses and horse, you know, like when, you know, it's such a different energy, like horses as individual horses, and then horse, you know, as that, like that energy of the entire history of horse. And such a rich and unparalleled connection to humanity. I'm complete.
This is a really big question.
Yeah.
And what lands for me, it actually makes my heart race a little bit, because it actually brings up some of the work that I'm doing is in collective trauma in the human realm. And yet I also see essentially a mirroring in the equine, the human relationship with horses, where there's trauma between the human to the horse. It's almost identical to the way in which the human performs trauma on their own soul. And so I feel that there's almost this parallel plane of the collective equine energy, and for that healing that relationship, while the human collective having the capacity to heal. I don't even know how it's coming out, but that's what comes up for me. There's this core piece of where I see the betrayal in the relationship with the horse. It always comes back to a self-betrayal, a betrayal to the aspect of soul that we've been conditioned to disallow or push down or whatever. But I feel that power and that wisdom that you're inviting, Linda, it lives within the dynamic that the equine collective is holding, essentially, this similar trauma that is being inflicted by us, but upon ourselves as well. If that makes any sense. That's, yeah. And again, it makes my heart race. So
Wow.
it's a big question.
It is. It's one that there's one I sit with a lot. Thank you.
And I'm complete.
Thank you. Nancy, that's a really interesting comment. Yeah. Okay, I think Fotini.
I answered. Oh, another question?
Yeah, I think I've answered. Oh, did I? I did not. Did I answer my own question? I think I asked. I don't think I answered. Sorry.
I was in the field of the equine collective. Now I'm lost.
No, I think I did. I talked about Rupert Sheldrake. So yeah, okay. I think we're on to the next question. Wow, we just got really in there.
So I'm asking
your
question. So we have 3 questions each?
Yeah, 3 questions.
Oh, okay.
3
cool.
and 6 questions. 2 each. Oh, we'll keep going. We're good.
Going to be two, but
Okay.
this is great.
Sorry. If you got one, that's fine. Sorry.
I did bring one more. Ironically, or synchronicity speaking here.
There we go.
So Maya Angelou has a quote: "When we know better, we do better." What knowing have the horses helped you embody, and how has it helped you do better for horses and humanity?
For me, the knowing is that my being is enough. So trusting in my innate goodness then allows kind of everything else to be okay. And again, it comes back to the quote that you've offered that's so beautiful: when you know better, you do better. But with the horses, I feel that embodied, that's what's built in me over all of the kind of decades of relationship that I've had with them, is that mirroring of my innate goodness, and therefore trusting that I'm enough just by being, and my being is able to be on purpose and of service, and to be present is enough. And I'm complete.
Beautiful, simple and profound.
Yeah. I think mine's along the same line as like knowing self. Knowing to listen, but knowing to act, and knowing when. I have had a knowing for a while now is to leave everything. Like leave everything, like quit your job. And I hear people more and more saying, you know, like I hear stories and I hear talks, and you know, you're somewhere and somebody, a guest speaker suddenly comes on and 5 years ago I left my job and this all happened, and you're like, damn you. You know, yeah, because you cry because you recognize it. They're tears of recognition. You recognize that. Yet you have to live in this world, and it almost goes back to a childlike fear of this deep knowing, but there's also this deep fear that, am I ready to go to that place that I in here think I might go to if I dropped everything?
Yeah.
But then we go to that surrender. We go back, loop right around to that, almost that beginning, and that surrender, and how having that knowing inside of us, but having that courage to follow that deep, deep knowing. I'm gonna quit my job tomorrow, probably. But yeah, and even though life might be set for you for a while, and you think, okay, I've got a plan. Yeah, there's something else going, might not be the plan that you really think you got. Yeah, like, I think we got a better one for you here. So, you know, when we know better, we do better. That knowing is that it's that deep voice that never argues. It waits. When you're ready, I'm here, and then we'll go. Nice. Even though we're always going, and that you talked about destination earlier, and that time, and even though you're always present, you're always there. You know, those are those, yeah, that knowing is a deep knowing. And that how has that helped me with horses? Well, I've always don't like that. The magazine is a deep knowing. That magazine came from the heart and from a deep knowing that this is, I don't remember the moment I said, I should do a magazine, because I don't know how, knew nothing about doing a magazine, but that was that deep knowing that something said do it, and I just did it. I didn't argue with it. I just did it. So, and I think humanity, I think we show humanity just by doing those things. You've both made, and I admire you both so much for it. You both made big moves and trusted that knowing. And humanity is better for that because we see you doing it and you role model it. And I'm complete. I'll stop
for
there.
that. I echo and resonate with both of your responses in the sense that, like, for me, this knowing is truth. And it's like the truth. And it's just like, we know in our embodiment, in our existence, we know truth. And truth is like the guide. And that's when we have that knowing that, like, even though the plan, as you mentioned, Linda, that plan, and my story, so you know all about the plan, and then truth comes in. It's like, yeah, that's the plan, but this is truth. And you can really clearly identify the difference between the plan and the truth.
Yeah.
I'm complete.
Wow. All right. So I think have we all done that one? So
Yeah.
Greta,
Yeah.
we'll let you bring up the final
my last
question.
Yeah. My last question is, what do you feel within your life has ripened that needs harvesting? And how do you know? What cues do the horses give? What cues does your environment give your body? How do you know? That's the right thing.
That's such a great question. Tina, I see you're thinking deeply there.
I'm feeling into it because it's like I want to say something, but it's like not ready to be said. And then the word came to me, healing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's all healing. Like, and it comes in those cycles of ripening and harvesting. And it really doesn't end. It's just an ongoing process. And the horses give me the cue, and my body gives me the cue when it's ready to be harvested each time. It's like these layers of unbecoming and more unbecoming. So I just get closer and closer to the divine and who I really am and who they really are in the core, and who we all really are in the core of our truth. I'm complete.
Yeah. I feel like we have small harvests and we have big harvests. Sometimes we have little fields, sometimes we have a veggie patch, and sometimes we have a giant cornfield. And lately I've been thinking on the concept that we often say life is like a spiral. But in that spiral, there are points, there are stakes that go straight up and down. And every time you come around that spiral, you're hitting that same stake. And it's like reading a book again. And that's that sort of that line in your life. That's like a theme or something in your life that maybe it's something you keep hitting. But you hit it each time with a different perspective, because you're not going around a circle, you're going around in a spiral. Therefore, you've come around again, and it's a different perspective you have on that. Like reading that book, and I didn't notice that before when I read that book the first time. So it's coming around, and that feels like that harvesting is when I come around again, and this is just train of thought here, when that comes around again, what eyes do I see that harvesting with? You know, and sometimes that harvesting, like I say, is small, and it's something that's maybe easier to do, and that's ripening, and it's easier for me to do. And sometimes there's a new steak in there, and you're like, oh, where did that come from? And it's a little harder to, and you have to go around a few times through the seasons, maybe, to understand it, and before you can harvest it. And the horses are there's something a saying I had came up with years ago, and horses are love, always have been, are, and always will be. And the horses are they're that constant on that spiral for us, for the folks that are, you know, well, there are for anybody that chooses to embrace their energy, whether it be from afar or close or reading a book, it doesn't matter. But they're that constant, they're a constant energy there, and they're that constant knowing, that constant support. You go to them, you get, there it is. So yeah, they show you how to harvest. I'll show you how to grow, then sow, and they show you how to do all of that. So yeah, I will certainly take that one and ponder it very much. But yeah, that's sort of what's coming up for me. Wow. I'm complete.
Can I just add something real quick?
Yeah.
So as you were speaking, Linda, my dog, Otis, turned around and put his head on this pillow, and the pillow says love. And it was so interesting because within 2 minutes of when he did that, or not even like 30 seconds, you said the word love. So anyway, I just wanted to bring in some dog wisdom.
Look at he's looking like, yeah.
I know. He's a little regal. He's a regal guy. Hey, buddy.
Oh, thanks.
So that was kind of neat.
Yeah. Good. Oh, did we lose Greta? Oh no.
No, that's not good.
She's in Chile, and she's very southern tip of Chile. So I'm so glad that her internet has lasted this long.
I was going to say it's been showing her bandwidth warnings the entire time, but she's done really well.
Yeah, so let's just give it a second.
Mm.
I love the comments that I'm seeing. I haven't been fully reading them here, but I'm just going to go back a bit while we're, where are we here? Nancy, on my head. Yeah, so I'm really interested when we're done here, we get Greta back. We'll have you guys come in, because I'm seeing synchronicity with the folks that are on here, just like, oh yeah, this was in my head, and this was, oh, there she is. Awesome. There you are. We got you back. All right.
Sure, mute is on.
Yeah.
Mute's on.
Yeah, your mute button's on still, and you're crooked.
There we go.
There we go. You're back.
And I'm sideways. I'm back.
There we go.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, okay, I figured you've done well with where you are. You've done well, or your internet has done well. So I think we had both completed ourselves and wanted to, where does your question land with you?
Yeah, I think that this question came through because it's part of connected with what you both have said, and what's come up through all of these questions is this returning to a gentleness with self. And I think that sometimes having an expectation that we're always in the mode of producing things has us holding on to what has matured, when it's time to actually let it go. And so for me with the horses, it's the practice of knowing when the release happens, and that it's in the release that there's that space, there's that grace, there's the receiving, the appreciation. And that for me is the harvest. And so, yeah, how it comes through at different stages of life and in different moments. I try to tend a deeper awareness of, even if something feels like it's going really, really well, not clutching onto it, right? And being aware that when it actually feels like it's quite ready, that the harvest might be me letting go of it, and might mean tending a new, as you brought Linda, a new vegetable patch, or a new type of work, or a new type of task, or something in that space. And so, yeah, what it brings up for me is that softness, to not kind of clutch on to like where we've arrived. And the horses have taught me so much in that regard too, especially because my relationship with them and the land here in Chile has been very open, and has been very open to what comes. They came to me, and the land is coming in all of these fluid ways. And so the harvesting very much is kind of being aware of when it's time to move, and when it's time to stay. And again, this practice of just listening, and then responding, and knowing, and feeling that, and trusting when you feel it.
Beautiful. Thank you. I see your little one is awake. Thank you, ladies, so much. Good. I'm wondering if we could, I know your hands are full there, or at some point you could send me that last question, because I'd like to put these questions when we put this up online. But if you can, or send it to me later, that's fine.
I can type it in here for you, Greta. What was it again?
Okay.
What in your life has ripened and needs harvesting?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay.
So while you're doing that, first of all, I'm going to say thank you to you ladies, because wow, I get so excited about these conversations. They're so deep, so powerful, so expanding of all of our hearts. I know I leave them and go, I gotta do some thinking about that. I'm gonna think about that. It expands, and I'm sure to everybody that's here, and if those that listen, I will post this on YouTube later. If people that listening, it does the same. And for speaking for myself, this is the bigger picture to me, is how can we have these conversations and expand ourselves, showing others that it's okay to expand, and what does that feel like? And for the last year, I've just been, what's this bigger picture? How can we do this? And these things pop in. It's like, oh, there you go. That's how you do it. So thank you to you two. I'd love to invite everybody to come off or come onto your screen and come off mute, and any comments. I love what your comments have been. I will capture your comments when I finish recording this, but I would love if we come into gallery view and see everybody here, and invite any comments that anybody has. If anybody would like to.
To bring it to horses, Linda, when you said surrender, I remembered a moment many, many years ago when I was at a Spiritual Frontiers workshop, and one of the activities was to stand in the middle of the circle and have someone say, each person in the circle said to the person in the middle one word. And one of my dear friends, when I was in the middle, looked right at me and said, submit. And it really triggered me, because my mother was very domineering, and so submit was not pleasant. And until the following weekend, when I went to a dressage show and was the scribe for the dressage judge. And in the criteria was the word submission. And I knew what that meant, and I knew how that felt. I knew what it was like when the horse comes in and raises his back and comes onto the bit, and everything flows magically and completely, and suddenly it wasn't a bad word anymore.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and it was surrender, but in a completely mutual way that
Mhm.
made such a beautiful flow and a beautiful moment and a beautiful activity. So
Interesting.
when you said surrender, I thought of that moment.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's it's interesting how it comes up as we see it as one thing because when it first comes up, but as we stay with it and feel, as Botini said several times, feeling into it, it reshapes and like, oh, okay, that's very different now. Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that, Pam. Anybody else like to share anything or offer anything?
Just generally, sacred circles are very, very important. And I think, Linda, you touched upon the small harvest, large harvest. Sacred circles can be 1, 1,000, 1,000,000, and on and on and on, just like dimensions. This is a very, very valuable sacred circle. I really, really thank you.
Thank you.
I honor all of you.
Thank you, Nancy. I really appreciate that. And you've made me think, I think I'm going to write to Zoom and ask them to do a circle formation. Is that what
Like
Good
that.
idea. Good idea.
is? I'm going to ask them
Love that.
a circle mode. There we go.
I love it.
Mhm.
Thank you, Nancy. Siri, George, Leslie, anything to add? Any thoughts?
Oh, the thought that came with, what's ripe and needs to be harvested. It's like you have your apple tree and you pick the apples because they're ripe and they need to be harvested, or maybe you pick them a little bit before they're ripe so that you can share. And I think the thing is that the sharing and that communal giving of when something's ripe with you or near ripe, and it's not something that should be just dropped to the ground or stashed away in long-term storage or whatever. It's something that needs to be shared, and it not really a teaching or anything, just a sharing. It's that you've had that knowledge and it's ripened, and now it's become wisdom, and wisdom is something that's shared and experienced. So that's kind of what came to me today. And thank you as always, Linda, for the incredible guests you have and all the speakers and sharers. And it's just layers and layers and layers of goodness. So thank you.
Oh, thank
Wow.
you, George. That means
Thank
a lot
you.
to me.
And
Wow.
that comment was,
Yeah.
wow. I don't know. It just hit me right here in my heart because I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Finding Joe, inspired by Joseph Campbell. Anyway, it might resonate. He talks about the hero's journey. And that's what it's all about, is exactly what you described, George, is about, like, you go on this journey and you experience all these things, and whether they're challenges or hard times, anytime you can ask any farmer who's got crops, right? There's always a journey before you get to harvest them. And at that harvest time, it's just exactly what you said, George. In Finding Joe, he talks about bringing it back to the community. And just like what you said, it's not necessarily a teaching, it's a sharing. It's like, here I am, I'm back from that circle, and this is what I brought from the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
That was so profound. Thank you.
Yeah. Interesting. That brings me sort of the vision that came into my mind is in the times gone by when the men had gone out to hunt, they would come back to the circle. What did we do? Like, and I'm imagining that was the conversations that was had, and how was it done? And that kind of ties into storytelling and how, groups and generations of storytelling. That's how wisdom was passed along, was through storytelling. And I know people who lived in communities that were only storytelling, and as generations passed on, you're losing that storytelling. So that communal is so important now, more than ever. So, wow, thank you.
Yeah, that was powerful.
Thank you, Leslie. That's yes, there is so much to think about. It's just a little bit.
And it's funny because if you notice if I can just finish, it's just one little quick thing about the last comment. If you notice that when we do come back with the sharing of our stories, oftentimes there's no more sort of emotional attachment to it, because we've already sort of completed that ripening and we've harvested it. So that emotional triggers and attachments, they sort of dissipate, and then we're left with the stories.
Just the stories. Yeah.
So cool.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That's beautiful. That's another layer to it. Simi, I'd love to hear. I loved your questions. Simi asked the most beautiful questions after the last one on Facebook, and I love the rabbit holes we went down. I love rabbit holes. I think I got a little Alice in Wonderland in me, because you inspired so much deep thinking. It was beautiful. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to quickly share. I don't know how much you cannot imagine how much this conversation has meant to me. We have an 18-year-old wonderful boy with autism who does not speak. And 8 years ago, I discovered Mustangs. And so we currently have a herd of 5 Mustangs. And through our son, Benjamin, and these horses, I've realized that you all have touched on everything that I've been realizing during this last 90 minutes that we've been here. But so I'll just give you a couple examples. Benjamin is so in tune with nature. He reacts to full moons, every change of the season. He'll go through kind of a hyper eating the house down, just all over the place as we approach the seasonal change. And then the season change happens, and now he's on the downfall. Like currently he's like under blankets, and I mean, his whole being is so in touch with nature and the changes, and I mean, everything you've all been speaking about today. It's just so, I feel so fortunate to have been here, but how the horses are with him has just shown me, if we can just get out, us as normal humans can just get out of our own way and just be so sensorially in touch with ourselves and everything around us, that, I mean, just watching him with the horse, he approaches the horses with no agenda, just curiosity and just being in the present moment. He can pull on their tails. He can, these are untouched wild horses, right? That touch their ears and do crazy things, and they're totally fine. It's not until I come in the picture with my, oh my God, Ben, stop, right? That the horses then pick up on that. So anyhow, I could go on and on, but just thank you all so much that everything that's been said is, I'm like, literally my body's vibrating because we have a nonprofit that we're starting, and I'm trying to figure out how to introduce this concept to people that autism isn't something to be fixed. Yes, of course, there are daily things that need to be dealt with that can be challenging, but these people are actually more in tune with nature and with animals. And so anyhow, I'm so happy to be here and hopefully get more and more ideas from you all to kind of help me realize going into the unknown, talk about unknown. I have this nonprofit and I don't know what we're going to be doing with people, but just hanging out with the horses. So anyhow, thank you so much.
Thank you. And Simi, I'm going to put my email in there. I'm going to share with you a lady from England who works with a nonverbal autistic boy about your son's age.
Mm.
And this young gentleman writes poetry, and it is all about being
Oh.
nonverbal autistic. And
Oh, wow.
it
That's
the
our son
connections you make
just,
there.
he just started to learn to type to
Mm.
communicate. And it's pretty incredible, the things that he's able to type. So thank you so much, Linda. I look
I
forward to
will
that.
definitely, I'll put my email in there. Please email me because I will put you in touch with them. And he goes to the horses, and she doesn't have an agenda. The owner of the farm doesn't have an agenda, and allows, and the beauty from it is, and I got the chance to meet Murray when I was last in England, and I had my camera, and he didn't even know I was there until one moment. He did know I was there because he walked over, stopped in front of the camera, and went, and walked away.
Ah.
And I'm like, yes, he knew I was there. But I had
Wow.
expectations, and no, it was just, it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. So
Wow.
I will share them with you and introduce you to them because they're beautiful,
thank
beautiful
you.
people. So
Thank you. Thank you all so
absolutely.
much
Thank
Oh,
you.
again.
Thank you all
Been
for
so
being here.
incredible.
We're all going almost shortly 2 hours. So I think we'll wrap it up there. I'm going to, this is being recorded, so I'm going to put this online so we can all see it and share it. Thank you, Fotini, Greta. Thank you. Both Greta, Fotini, and George are writing for us this next edition of Equine Leadership. So with the powerful words that said here, I can't wait for the articles. They will be, we have a stellar lineup this year. So lineup, it sounds like a show, but we have somebody from every continent except Antarctica, and I don't think we'll ever get a penguin to write for us. So I think we'll be not on that one. So thank you all for being here. And I encourage, when we do put it up, certainly share your comments and questions. Like, we just had some beautiful conversations last time. Oh, you're gonna wake up now. See, you got good timing. Say hello. Say hello.
Oh, hi, Audrey.
Capture the chat comments. I wasn't able to
I
see
will.
them because I dialed in from my phone. So, and I would love
Oh,
to see
will.
everyone's comments along the way.
Absolutely.
And
I
stay
will.
connected. So appreciative
I
of
will.
this space.
Oh,
So thank you, Linda.
absolutely. Oh, thank you.
And
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and somebody's just signed in here. A little late. Oh my goodness. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Have a
Thank you all
wonderful
so much.
Namaste.
evening. And
Namaste. Thank you.
talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
bye.
I'm gonna stop recording.